When you watch a high-level jiu-jitsu player roll, the defining characteristic is efficiency, efficient movements, and efficient energy utilization. In my view, to become a great grappler means you have to become efficient, physically efficient, and technically efficient. Roll intro. Physical efficiency involves three things: great mobility, high strength to weight ratio, and great cardiovascular fitness. Technical efficiency also involves three things: programmed responses, automatic execution, and step minimization. Jiu-Jitsu at its most fundamental level is a movement art, and usually the goal is to move ourselves. The quality of our Jiu-Jitsu is only going to ever be as good as the quality of our movement. If you have very poor mobility and poor movement, the quality of your Jiu-Jitsu is not going to be very good. If you have killer movement, you have the potential for incredible Jiu-Jitsu. In order to get better at movement, you have to practice moving. Movement is a skill, one that you can get significantly better at with practice. Every movement we make contains a pattern, and if you can extrapolate the pattern and drill and practice that pattern, then you become much better at being able to move spontaneously and efficiently as the need arises.
The speed is astounding.
Probably the simplest way to increase your strength to weight ratio is to get lean. If you're carrying around 20, 25, 30 extra pounds of weight, maybe your pressure game will feel pretty good, but every other aspect of your game is going to suffer and you're going to use more fuel. There's a reason why the top grapplers in the world all have very low body fat. It allows them to have a higher strength to weight ratio even if they're not as strong in an absolute sense. Is someone going to make more pancakes? The second aspect to developing a high strength to weight ratio is doing some kind of resistance work. It can be calisthenics, it can be resistance bands, it can be kettlebells, it can be traditional weightlifting. It really doesn't matter, but if you're a grappler, you should be doing some kind of weightlifting. High strength to weight ratio means you're strong relative to your own weight. You don't need to be exceptionally strong in an absolute sense. Jiu-Jitsu is not a weightlifting contest, but you do need to be strong relative to yourself. Why? Because if you can move yourself utilizing less energy, you'll perform much better. In my view, you don't have to spend hours in the gym. We're not bodybuilders, but at minimum, you should be hitting the 4 major movement patterns: squatting, hinging, pressing, and pulling. Training Jiu-Jitsu will certainly improve your cardiovascular fitness and your muscle endurance. Every sport has specific attributes that can only be maximized by training the sport itself, and Jiu-Jitsu is no different. But if you really want to take your training to the next level, you'll have to train your energy systems outside a BJJ class, and you'll need to train each energy system optimally. There are 2 energy systems that we utilize when we train Jiu-Jitsu, depending on how hard we are pushing. One is the aerobic system, and the other is the anaerobic system. One is based on oxygen, the other is based on glycogen. Now, these are distinct systems that can only be maximized if you train specifically for those systems. Elite athletes have a very small gap between their aerobic threshold and their anaerobic threshold, allowing them to sustain immense output. That's the goal, to effectively merge the 2 energy systems. Jiu-Jitsu is a killer workout unto itself. If you're just a casual Jiu-Jitsu player or a hobbyist, going to class might be all the workout you need to stay in amazing shape. But if your goal is to take your training to that next level and become truly efficient, you have to train for specificity. Now, this is a deep subject. I don't have time to go into depth today, but I plan to do a video on it in the future. You need programmed responses both offensively and defensively for all the challenges you face on the mat. There's an old saying that says, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Useful as a hammer is, it's not the right tool for every job. The same thing is true on the mat. You need enough tools, enough techniques to deal with the problems you face on the mat. How many techniques do you need to learn? At minimum, you should have a couple reliable offensive and defensive things from every position you find yourself in. That's a baseline. If you're a new white belt, your goal should be 2 offensive techniques and 2 defensive techniques from the most common positions: mount, side control, back mount, knee on belly, closed guard, half guard, and open guard. You'll never be efficient until you have a set of rehearsed and programmed techniques at the ready. Just like the mechanic, you need the right tool for the job. To be efficient on the mat, it's not enough to have programmed responses. You need responses that can be executed automatically without conscious thought. If you were to ask me to change the fan belt on this car, I could get it done without a doubt. But if you were to compare the speed at which I could get it done versus a seasoned mechanic, it wouldn't even be close. Even if I understood the tools necessary to do the job, the difference is automatic execution. A seasoned mechanic has dealt with scenarios like this many times, and even if they've never changed this particular fan belt, they're still going to be faster because they understand the process. The same thing is true in Jiu Jitsu. We need to be able to execute the right technique the instant a window of opportunity presents itself. You might know lots of techniques, but if you don't have the sensitivity to feel when to apply them, you won't be effective. Knowing techniques is one side of the coin. Applying them automatically without conscious thought is the other side. Here's the bad news. It takes a lot of training to ingrain those patterns as automatic reflexes. The good news is through deliberate training, you can accelerate that process. I did a video on the subject, so go check it out. The third component of technical efficiency is step minimization. Here are some examples. Let's start with the triangle to see what I mean by step minimization. Typically, when you learn the triangle, you learn it as a series of connected steps. Step 1, get the arm out of position. Step 2, cross your legs. 3, we bridge up so we can get the arm across. Step 4, pull them back in. Step 5, get a hold of the shin. Step 6, foot on the hip. 7, turn. 8, the leg goes up and over. Step 9, you begin squeezing. 10, you can pull on the head. So there's at least 10 steps in the triangle, maybe more depending on how you look at it. This is what step minimization might look like. Another example is an arm bar from mount. So typically step 1 will be to get control of the arm. Step 2, base out. Step 3, slide the knee all the way up. Step 4, pull the forearm in. Step 5, windshield wiper. 6, switch your grip. 7, post. 8, get the leg around. 9, get the tap. And this is what step minimization might look like. Whenever you learn a new technique in Jiu Jitsu, whether it's an offensive technique, a defensive technique, or a transitional sequence, it's always going to be a compound movement, which is a movement that is made up of individual segments. It's very important to drill and train those segments as individual components within a bigger technique before trying to minimize it. Otherwise, you end up with slop. So learn it sequentially, train it smooth, train it slow, and as your speed increases, you can begin shaving off components, rounding the corners. To be a great grappler, you need a high degree of technical efficiency and physical efficiency. I hope this video helps you maximize your training. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments.